Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Moody Still Groovy, or me, Mick. I know it's been a while, so I wanted to first start off by kind of updating you guys. I know it's been a crazy time around the world right now for everyone. So I have personally been MIA for a few reasons. One of them is I have moved facilities actually. So I am now down in LA, which is pretty far from me from everything I've ever known, and I'm at a new treatment facility. Hopefully this one will be my last one. I have very strong hopes and belief in myself, which is something new. So there's a few reasons I made this move, and you know, I know they're my personal reasons, but I just wanted to share some with you guys so I could be transparent. There was a lot going on at my old place, a lot of new traumas happened, and I was in a very emotionally dysregulated state and just not ready to be living on my own in pretty much any capacity. And I'm beyond blessed and grateful that I am where I am. It's gorgeous here. We have horses. I think they're probably going to be my little title card, and they're not going to be in this video probably, but maybe I'll sneak in a clip of them at the end. But yeah, it's been amazing here. There's so much nature and wildlife, and I've been learning and healing and growing so much. And I also just needed some space from everything I had known was all in the area I was, in the Bay Area. So now I'm pretty far away from all of that and able to just focus on myself, as well as looking for a program that was just different than the other ones I had been in. And I can say with 100% confidence, this place is completely different. I feel like I'm growing and learning so much in such a short amount of time. I wasn't able to have technology for my first few weeks here, and then I took some time for myself once I did get it, and now I feel ready to put myself back out there and talk about some important things, because there's a lot of important things happening right now. So yeah, I'll probably be in this program for about 2 more months if I'm lucky, and we'll go from there. So I did want to start off, before I get into kind of the more relevant worldview things right now, with a new diagnosis I've been given. So I've been given a diagnosis along with my pre-existing ones, my bipolar, all the other stuff, of borderline personality disorder. And this is a disorder in my earlier video, my first one I think, I mentioned I wanted to do a video on. So this is just going to be a very quick little crash course because there's other things I really want to talk about. So yeah, I have a co-diagnosis now of bipolar 1 disorder as well as borderline personality disorder and a few others that I'll probably get into later on. So borderline personality disorder, what is that? There's a lot of stigma around this disorder as well as bipolar disorder, and so it is a personality disorder for one, which is different than a mood disorder. There are some similarities between bipolar disorder and borderline, however that's a video for another day. I'm going to mainly be focusing on borderline. So it is characterized by a pattern of varying moods, behaviors, and self-image. What I mean by self-image is like how you view yourself and your place in the world. There are also mood swings in borderline personality disorder, or BPD. They can look similar to bipolar mood swings, however they are different. A lot of times borderline mood swings are characterized by reactivity to others, surroundings, events, or the internal with the person suffering from BPD, how they are perceiving those things. It is characterized by severe black and white thinking, also known as all or nothing thinking. So it's thinking in extremes, for example, seeing all things as either good or all bad, and there's no gray area. So an example of this in my life is I oftentimes see myself as an all bad person. There can be a little bit of good and it's just all bad in my head. And I'm working on that, challenging that core belief and figuring out kind of what's underneath all of that. So yeah, that is something that's very commonly characterized as borderline personality disorder. This can also extend towards friendships. So someone who can be seen as a very close friend one day can be seen as an enemy or a traitor the next day. as well as activities or things of interest, as the person with BPD typically has an unstable or uncertain sense of self. That means that they're trying to find their place in the world, so the things that they are interested in can rapidly change along with their rapidly changing identities or view of self. There are also efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. A lot of times people with BPD have severe attachment issues stemming back from childhood or whatever. So this can mean initiating intimate relationships early on, or cutting off someone in retaliation to the threat of feeling like you are going to be abandoned. There is a pattern of intense and unstable relationships with family, friends, lovers. There is usually a lot of intense love and intense adoration, and then it can become very quickly distrust and closed off and shut down and rude and cruel. That's not to say that that's how every person with BPD is. However, out of fear is what it comes from, not out of a malicious intent. There is a distorted sense of self, which I already kind of mentioned, as well as a reckless behavior pattern, whether it be reckless sex, unsafe sex, driving too fast, recklessly spending money, doing drugs, all those things. And I know that sounds similar to bipolar, and there is a precaution of if those are only happening when a person is in an elevated mood state, it is more commonly linked to a mood disorder rather than a personality disorder. There can be self-harm behaviors, reoccurring suicidality, and that can be very persistent and uncomfortable. And then with those mood swings, they are intense and they highly fluctuate. They can be within hours to days, whereas I know I'm not going too much into the comparison of it to bipolar, but with bipolar, it's typically a longer period of a mood shift. So it won't be like manic, like manic for 2 hours and then depressed and then manic. It's usually manic for a while, depressed for a while, with some exceptions. There is a chronic feeling of emptiness or boredom often reported in these individuals. There can be inappropriate or intense anger, difficulty controlling that anger, difficulty with trusting others and opening up and being vulnerable, as well as feelings of disassociation or feeling cut off from one's reality. Now, that's not to say someone who's borderline will have every single thing I just listed off, and there's probably more. However, those are just some of the more common symptoms. Disorder is a tongue twister. In the past, borderline personality disorder has been historically seen as a difficult to treat disorder. However, thankfully, with new research and a new mindset and approach to therapy, that is slowly becoming less true. And a lot of therapists are treating borderline personality disorders and a lot of other personality disorders as a symptom of trauma. So a trauma-based disorder, so a disorder stemming from a chaotic, unstable, or harmful childhood experience that manifests in a detrimental way into adulthood. So that's a brief crash course of borderline. I just wanted to get that out there because I know that some people maybe have never even heard of that disorder or have negative associations with that disorder. People with BPD are not all cruel monsters by any means. A lot of times they're just traumatized and trying to figure themselves out. And that's what I'm trying to do. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Now on to what I really, really wanted to get to the heart of. And that is everything that's going on in the world. So I want to start off by saying Happy Pride Month to everyone. For anyone who doesn't know, I identify as queer, more specifically pansexual. I just feel more comfortable with the term queer. That's not the same for everyone though, so please ask. And so with that, I want to take a moment and reflect upon what's happening in the world right now. So Pride is, yes, an amazing celebration that people in North America are very lucky to get to go to. That is not true for every part of the world, however. And I want to shed light on how Pride started. I want to remind people that amidst all these protests, Pride originally started out as a riot. If you go to Pride and enjoy the celebration and the beauty around you, that's amazing. But please know that it started from a place of fear, a place of being quiet, It started with police brutality in a police routine check of a notoriously queer bar in New York called the Stonewall Inn. And they were doing their routine checks when people finally had enough. It occurred June 27th, 1969. Not even that long ago. Some of your grandparents were probably alive for this, or maybe some of you were alive for this. According to popular belief, Marsha P. Johnson, a queer black trans woman, was responsible for throwing the first brick. We don't really know if we can confirm that for sure. Miss Johnson herself has denied being the first one to throw the brick. There is some speculation that it could be Sylvia Rivera, another queer person of color. There is some, theories as to it being Sylvia Rivera, a queer person of color. However, Miss Rivera has also denied being the first one to throw the brick. While we may not be able to say for certain who did throw that first brick on June 27th, it is important to note that Miss Johnson, as well as Sylvia Rivera, had a very important part in the community regardless of whether or not they threw the first brick. And as queer people of color, they had an even harder time, and yet they still fought hard for our community. There are also reports of a young butch black lesbian named Storme de la Voix, and I don't know if I'm saying her name right. I tried to look it up. There wasn't much out there, but I believe that's something kind of close. Threw the first punch as a cop was throwing one at her. And from that first punch, if it was Storme or not, we do know that the first punch was what ignited all of the riots and the fighting back to occur. While these queer people of color all did have a hand in the Stonewall riots, we cannot say for certain who started what, and regardless, what's important to note here is that a group of marginalized voices came together to stand up for what was right, to stand up against being abused, to stand up against being silenced, murdered, hurt, jailed for no reason. And most of these riots were indeed started by queer people of color. And that is very important to note. We have come so far from that dark night, and yet there is still so much work to be done, not even in parts of the world where you can still be murdered for being queer, but even right here in America or in a country that has progressive LGBTQ movements, people are still being murdered. Not just queer people, people of color and queer people are being murdered at an exceptionally high rate. And there is a lot to be said for that. Not only are people being murdered for no good cause, this is also a mental health issue down to its core. A 2015 study conducted by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration's National Survey on Drug Use and Health, that was very long, sorry, I had to look at my notes, found that 1 in 3 LGBTQ adults, transgender statistics are coming next, suffered from a mental illness compared to 1 in 5 in heterosexual adults in America. 40% of transgender individuals reported a severe psychological distress rate while taking the survey, which was around 5 times higher, I believe, than the average statistic. 40% of transgender individuals in America have attempted suicide compared to 5% of the general population. Queer people who live in communities with a more stigmatizing viewpoint towards the queer community died on average 12 years earlier than people who faced a more supportive community. As well as at the state level, transgender adults are significantly less likely to attempt suicide if they live in supportive communities. This is a human rights issue, a mental health issue, and so much more. It is a mental health issue for the marginalized communities, the Black communities, the Latin communities, the queer communities who are being silenced, murdered, and just horribly, horribly mistreated. All of the mental repercussions from that are beyond the roof, as well as the mental repercussions of the people going into these violent positions. Why are they so angry? There's so much to be said here, and I'm proud to say that I am with Black Lives. Black Lives Matter. And There's nothing that can dispute that to me. So I hope that in the midst of all these protests that you remember Pride was a riot. What's happening right now is Pride. This is what we do when we come together. We stand up for our marginalized voices who have been quieted and silenced for hundreds of years. It was a riot started by a combination of queer, Black, and transgender people. It was a riot started on the back of some of the most marginalized voices of our community. And it's time that we all now stand together to raise our voices up high. Pride was about coming together to stand up for what was wrong, and what is happening to Black people is wrong, and what is happening to people of color is wrong. And this is what Pride is about, and let us not forget that after this revolution, in which hopefully some progress is made in the right direction, there will be severe mental health repercussions to deal with. The trauma from being in the protests and being caught in a riot, the trauma from being abused, injured, yelled at, killed, hurt, harmed by police, seeing all of those things, witnessing it, seeing it on TV, as well as the mental health repercussions of COVID and us being all in our houses or wherever you may be for months. This is going to be a mental health crisis. In specific, it's going to be a very huge mental health crisis for the queer and Black communities and the queer Black communities. It's time for us to be a united front so we can end suffering. So that was what I really wanted to get off my chest and talk about, because I don't think enough people realize what Pride started as, what it came from, and I think so many people are trying to make what's occurring a political issue when it's not. It's a human rights issue. This should not be happening. It is, and that means we must be strong. I will definitely be leaving some links down below to some organizations that you can donate to or share, and do what you can. I understand for those of you who might be unable to be a part of the protest who would like to be, this might be a hard time. I know I was there. However, as long as you're doing what you can, that's all that matters. If that is educating yourself, if that is donating, if that is sharing, whatever you can do, it is enough. Don't push yourself to do something that you physically or mentally are unable or incapable of doing. It's more important that you do what you can, because that is noted and very important. So that was what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm sorry if it ended on a bit of a sad note, but I hope that it was informative for you guys. Sorry if it was a little all over. I just wanted to cover a few things. And I will definitely be back with more videos. I'm looking forward to making them. I really missed it, and I missed you guys. So yeah, I hope that you guys are staying safe and well. If you are protesting, please stay safe. If you aren't, please stay safe as well. Everyone, it's so important that you are taking care of yourself right now. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And yeah, bye.
Girl. I don't have it. Hey, Bubba.